So we realized that, and that was a struggle. That was going to be something that God put on us to fight through, stick together, fight together, and figure out how to make it through. So what that did was I wanted to always give my brother some joy, some peace, give my mother something to clap for, someone to be proud of.
Welcome back to another episode of The Burn. Now this one is really fun for me because we are gonna go way, way back, and this is one of those things where it's like, man, I can't believe how fast time flies. So I could talk so much about Larry Hughes, 14 years in the NBA, 8th overall pick, pride of St. Louis, and all of the things that you did on the court.
Yep.
But I'm actually gonna go back to high school. And then I want to hear about your burn. And then really what I want to dive into is what I'm so impressed with now that we're these old men, is where we're sitting right now, what makes that burn go now as a father, really a continued leader in the community, what you've done with your foundation. But before we get there, just a quick couple things that I remember.
Yep.
So number one, from our sophomore years in high school, we played each other 7 times. We were 0 for 7 against you guys, and I don't think you ever broke a sweat. I think you dunked about 40 times in those 7 games, and the closest we ever came was 13 points, district finals at Ladue, our senior year. And what I remember is there was one point in the game where I had to pick you up at half court, and I never called switch faster my entire life. Switch! Like I wanted no part of that. So I knew, we all knew back then, like, man, we're witnessing something special.
Yeah.
And aside from what we saw on the court, and I mentioned this to you, and I will never forget it. And man, I remember seeing this when we were freshmen, sophomores, was the unity and how close you were with your mother, and how close you were with your brother Justin.
Yep.
And I know Justin was born with some heart difficulties, and man, I remember all of it like it was yesterday, and it's like over 20 years ago.
Yep.
And I remember watching you with him after games. I remember watching his eyes, I mean, he was a little boy, watching him watch you play, and just the tightness of your parents. Man, for this show and The Burn, and what we're talking about, if you're cool with it, I'd love to start there.
Oh, yeah.
And talk about what's in your heart, what that burn is, and how it's enabled you to do the things you've done in your life.
Oh, no question. It's no problem. No problem.
So tell us a little bit about that burn. So when you think back to, that's my memory, right? And we just played against each other.
Yep.
But when you think of your brother, you think of your mom, you think of what made you push to do all the things that you did. Tell us about that and where it came from.
It was really the motivation to give my family some joy. I played basketball because I was just so happened to be good at it. I played schoolyard basketball, before I played organized basketball at 12. So starting that, I just wanted to make my family proud. I wanted to, we were going through a tough time. I mean, like you said, my brother was born with transposition of the great vessels, which is a heart defect, right? Which is something that you have no control over. So we realized that, and that was a struggle. That was going to be something that God put on us to fight through, stick together, fight together, and figure out how to make it through. So what that did was I wanted to always give my brother some joy, some peace, give my mother something to clap for, someone to be proud of. And I felt that would ease, the struggles and things that we were going through. By using that sport, I was able to, I feel like, keep his life going. The longer I played, the more joy he had, the happier he was, the healthier he was. So I use basketball as a way to say, hey, I'm gonna do this for my family and for my brother because I know it makes them happy. Yeah, it made me happy. I definitely had joy from playing, but my ultimate motivation was to make my brother, feel a little bit of peace while I play basketball.
So this is pretty amazing for me because here we are. That's kind of what I saw with my eyes, but now to hear you articulate that is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So for you to do what you did at the level that you did it at, I'm gonna ask you a completely different question than I was thinking about. How often did you see guys that just never understood that piece, that never understood that, man, like your heart is where you got to start.
It's big. It's big. I think it's the ultimate separator. Everyone has a story, whether it be a single parent, whether it be a poverty situation, whether it be a broken household. Everyone has a story, right? It's what you attach yourself to that motivates you for a greater good. Like, I didn't just want to make it so I could make a bunch of money. That was never my deal. I wanted to make it so I could help other people. I wanted to give back. I wanted to be someone that people looked at as a light, of inspiration. That's why I play basketball. So like you said, like, a lot of people don't accept that everyone has a story. Like, my story is no greater than your story, but it's what I put into what my story is that makes it what it is. So, just standing next to that guy and knowing that he has a story, and how you're able to capitalize on that story.
Yeah, and see, so we never knew that we had a connection of stories, right? And my mom passed away 11 days before my 8th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Divorced parents, never knew my parents together, divorced when they were 6 months old. My mom had a rare muscle disease, came to the dinner table with an IV stand, 24-hour nursing care in the house. And there's so many times in my life where the mentors and coaches had to pick me up off that mat of life, and fueled by my mom from above and all those things. But there's so many times I reflect back to, I'm going through a tough period of time, and I'm like, man, like, this isn't tougher than seeing your mom ask you how your day was at school with an IV stand attached to her at the dinner table. So when you were breaking down game film, I like to talk about the unrequired, right? The stuff that people don't see, they can't even think about, that you're willing to do to get to your level. So how often did you think back to Justin, your mom, when you're going through that? Man, it's time to break down game film. I want to go to sleep. I got to get these extra shots up. I want to go to sleep. Like, how did you shift perspective?
It's ultimate motivation, and I think it was just ingrained in me, just my upbringing, my mom and what she stood for and how she carried herself. I know that, she's never going to have necessarily a bad day because she has us. So that's kind of how I looked at it. Like, I'm not going to have a bad day because I have them. So anytime that I got into any sort of, complicated situation or struggle, or, the last of those 10 and 1s that you got to make, like, it doesn't get any tougher than that. Like, I can do a minute. Like, I can do a minute easy, right? So that's how I look at it. It's like, this is only a minute, and we're talking about things that, affect you for an entire lifetime. So I use that as like, it's nothing. That's how I look at it.
So now, bring us forward to where we're sitting, right? There's plenty of stories of athletes who make their money, and it's not even guys who make poor financial decisions, but they make their money and then they really don't go on to do anything. And foundation work, giving back, you don't have to do any of this.
Right.
We all know that.
Right.
So how has that burn just continued today, being a father, right? Four children playing college basketball, children excelling in their lives, and then here. Like, how does that burn continue to impact you today and the decisions you make?
Well, I know that everyone has a story. I know that just that little bit of connection can take kids, adults, a long way. So I want to be that light. I want to be that inspiration. I want to have kids and have parents understand that I'm here for them, right? We built out a facility. My name's on it, my face is everywhere, but it's for them. And you too can have this opportunity if you use what's available to you. So it's never been about me. I've always repped St. Louis, is where I'm from. The different cities that I played in, it was all about shining the light on St. Louis. Like, I wanted to go out, be the best that I can be, and then they like, okay, that kid's from St. Louis. So let's go back to St. Louis, see if there's other kids there that can do what this kid is doing, and then, hey, I did my part. I was able to go out, grab the attention, and bring it back. So what I'm doing with the academy is I'm talking about skill development and character development. For those players that can make high-level basketball, can play at the NBA level, professional level, be paid to play basketball, this is a venue for you, right? We lay out our skills. We do a great job of organizing how we teach the game and the process of the game. But for those that are not going off to be paid to play basketball, we talk about life skills and the character development that it's going to take for these young people to be successful. Whether they're general managers, whether they're scouts, whether they're coaches, whether they're trainers, there's a gamut of things that they can do involving, sports in the game of basketball if they're not necessarily athletically inclined to be professionals and paid to play. So with that, I want to cover all those bases for these kids and allow them a chance to grow. And that's why I'm here, is to make sure that the community has something that they can use. It's something that's very meaningful. And this new term that I'm using now is efficient. Like, there's only 24 hours in the day, right? I don't want to spend 24 hours of my day working. So I want to be efficient with my time, right? So I look at how can I be efficient, with the academy, how can I be efficient with the kids? And that's something that's burning in me today, is to be more efficient with everything I do, whether it's family life, whether it's business life, whether it's basketball, just be more efficient and have the opportunity to impact more lives.
I love it. Seeing how you've taken your story and just made a conscious decision to not let it end, right?
Right.
Like, the best is coming.
Right.
Right, because the impact you'll have with the trajectory that's set with all this that you're doing
For sure.
is just incredible. Now, we have to go one place before we wrap up.
Yep.
We got to talk to these parents.
Yeah.
We got to talk to these parents. So we're going to ruffle some feathers here, but I think this is important.
Yep.
Because you and I were joking, and I'll go, and even though I work with professional athletes, collegiate athletes, I go to a game and watch my kids. I sit in the stands, and I let the coaches do their work.
Yep.
And I know that's important to you too, so I'd love for you to just share with the parents how important it is. Because I know so many people watching right now, you've got kids that are playing youth sports. How important is it for the actually just?
Well, I think
let them know.
There's no right or wrong right or wrong way to motivate your child, or to have them, or to allow them to have success within the sport. There's no right or wrong way, because sports have been around for years and years. Especially, I'll just talk specific basketball. Has been around for years and years. So there's a lot of ways that kids have gotten better, a lot of ways that these kids have trained, a lot of ways that these kids have been coached, and a lot of ways that these kids have been parented, right? But for the most part, I feel like parents, as parents, we must allow our kids to grow and understand what they're doing and be themselves. And I don't think a lot of parents do that, because what they do is they transplant this adult brain into this little child. Say a 10-year-old child, they put this adult brain into this 10-year-old child and wonder why they're not making this move, or they're not making this play, or they're not making that play. Well, you have to keep in perspective of what that kid is going through. What is your child going through? If they're playing basketball, it's him, and then there's 9 other people on the court. There's 1 basketball, there's 2 coaches, maybe sometimes 4 if they have an assistant. So God knows how many people are actually yelling at this kid, during that environment.
Right.
So for you, you're their safe haven. They look to you for confidence that you're doing things right, even if they may be doing things a little bit wrong. And I think parents, we jump into that boat of the other 9 kids that are on the court, the other coaching, staff that's there helping the kids out. We jump into that mode of, now we're coaching, now we're instructing, now we're yelling, shoot the ball, pass the ball, and it's a lot. So I want parents to take a step back and allow those kids to grow and have more conversation before and after those events take place. Because if you give them something to think about before that event takes place, you can see if they are executing or trying to execute what you had conversation about. And then if you talk to them afterwards, you're able to assess what happened during that game, if they listened to you before that event took place, and then you can have a meaningful conversation about how to get better the next time, because it's a process. But the biggest thing I think, and my message to parents is, don't put your brain and your years and years of now understanding the basketball game into your child and think that they're supposed to react as an adult who's seen different experiences and been in different situations. We must take a step back and allow our kids to be kids and to grow at the proper speed.
So I love hearing you say the meaningful conversations.
Yep.
It's a conversation,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's a constructive conversation with your child to kind of break down their game film and then to empower and inspire them.
Yeah.
And that, to me, those are the conversations that you teach that here.
Yep.
Think of all the lives that you impact that has nothing to do with the game.
Exactly.
It's actually teaching those children one day to be, that's how I'm going to work with my kids.
Exactly.
And that to me is the beautiful part of legacy and the impact that you're having. So one final question. If you were to speak to everybody watching, and they're in that moment where they don't want to make that sales call, where they're that athlete that doesn't want to run that next run, they don't want to do that final set of reps, what would you share with them? How would you encourage them to do that extra, that unrequired?
Well, I would encourage them to stand out from the person that's next to them. That can be in a multitude of ways. And if you're talking about running that line, if you see that person that's struggling running that line, put everything inside of you to not struggle running that particular line. So always be different. If you're shooting 5 spots and that guy makes 4 shots, be motivated, be driven enough to make 5 shots. And if you don't make 5 shots, be motivated to move to the next spot and make 5 shots. So I think it's never ending. So never stop with your motivation. You're never going to win every battle. You're always going to have some failures, but that's an opportunity to be successful. And in this process, especially talking about basketball, there'll be many opportunities to be successful. It's about how many times you actually grab those opportunities, about how successful you'll be.
Well, man, I can't tell you. It's always great to see you.
Thank you. You too.
And thank you for this opportunity. I got to tell you, it's a hell of a lot more fun cutting up with you during an interview than having to call switch at the top of the key. So always great seeing you.
That's what's up, man. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
To be able to excel at something. I was never going to outrun.
Like I said in the beginning, the burn always has evolved.